told me you lied, but I can see what you've been through. To somebody and everyone who was surrounded.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's debilitating. I mean, it's...
Oh, it was debilitating for her. My mother was such an extreme case too. I don't know if you read into any of her story, but my mom was severely mentally ill, and she rode that roller coaster, and I rode it with her all the way through. And she would take herself off her meds. She was revolving door at the hospital. She was at the psych unit countless times. Like, they knew my first name. I mean, I was there. She was there, and it was hard times. She really struggled really, really badly, right up until the end. I mean, her illness really, really was a beast. It really, really was.
Wow. Yeah, I must admit, I didn't read much about her story. I focused on yours.
Yes.
And with that, actually, we're live, and Lisa is going to tell us all about the stories that the listeners might have caught us discussing. Anyone that's listening, welcome. This is W.I.L.D, the podcast, where we dive into what we love doing, and that is having inspiring, life-changing conversations on air. I'm Diana Kouprina, and this evening we're joined by Lisa Zarcone. And I'm just going to read this through because there's so much and it's so amazing. Lisa Zarcone is a child abuse survivor and fierce advocate, author of The Unspoken Truth, a memoir, and the book of Joann, national ambassador for NAASCA, public keynote speaker, influence, and radio personality, recipient of the 2023 Woman of Impact Award and 2021 Massachusetts Heroine Award. That is so remarkable. Lisa calls herself a voice for the voiceless. I will say she is the voice for the voiceless. And I'm so honored that you're joining us here tonight on W.I.L.D, the podcast, which airs live on Just TV, 27 Roku TV, Shwana1 TV, NCG Television Network, Meta TV, and you can catch us live on www.jessfm.ca. W.I.L.D, the podcast is proudly sponsored by W.I.L.D Homes and Gardens magazine and Borderline, a poetic memoir published by W.I.L.D Press and is available on Amazon CA. Each copy sold helps us further our cause of sharing inspiring stories for free. If you wish to be a guest on W.I.L.D, the podcast, please email us at hello@wildhomesandgardens.com. And with that, thank you for tuning in. Lisa, welcome. I am so excited to dive into our conversation. Let's get the ball rolling with your books.
Yes, thank you.
Author of two brilliantly amazing memoirs. Can you tell the audience just a little bit about it? Let's get the ball rolling with your journey, and welcome.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate being here tonight. I'm glad we can do this, and let's just dive right in. Yes, I have written two books. Of course, my first book is my own personal memoir, The Unspoken Truth, and this is my story of growing up with severe abuse. It was child abuse with mental, emotional, and physical abuse at the hands, unfortunately, of my own mother, who suffered profusely with mental illness. And I was abused by a second abuser. I was sexually abused around at the age of 13. So I traveled a really long, hard road with extensive abuse for a very long period of time. And if you want me to dive in quickly just with a little bit of my story, I think it's just helpful.
Yeah, let's do it because it is so powerful, and I want everybody to hear it and get a sense of who you are, because it is quite remarkable that you're here with us and sharing all this and able to even discuss it. It blows my mind. So please go on.
So in the beginning, so when I wrote my book, I wanted to start from a really pivotal point in life. So when I started my story, I started at the age of 6 years old. And at this time in my life, I was dealing with the loss of my brother. So my brother was 9 years old and he died of leukemia.
Oh my God.
He was my best friend. my protector. He was my everything. He really understood like my mom and her illness. It was really interesting because as young children, we were really tapped into her.
Hmm.
She struggled, so like I said, profusely with her mental health. That he really shielded me from the storm from a very young age. And when I lost him, my whole family just fell apart. My dad said the day that my brother died, my mother died along with him in a sense because we lost her. She was never able to recover from the fact that
From
he was
that loss.
gone. And my dad couldn't handle losing his whole family. His whole family, kind of fell apart. And he always stayed away from the home. And at one point, he just decided he couldn't be there any longer and he left. And unfortunately, when he left me there. He left
Yeah.
me with my mom alone, and my mom's behaviors became more bizarre, more intense. And that's when the abuse really kicked in. The physical, the emotional, the mental was all coming at me from a very young age. And as I got a little bit older, it just kept progressing deeper and deeper. And the hard part to all that is that people knew, so many people knew and saw, and nobody
Hmm.
stepped up or stepped in. So I was in it alone. I was in it alone for a long, long period of time. I was a very damaged young girl. And then unfortunately, my mother also brought a lot of unsafe people into our home and
Yeah.
would prey upon me. And eventually, someone did prey upon me, and I was sexually abused. And I won't get into that whole story right now because it is a very long piece to what happened to me. But what I can tell you is that he was a young man from our neighborhood and he had mental illness like my mom. So they really bonded and connected. And she brought him into our home and he decided he would claim me as his own girlfriend. And from that point forward, he took control of everything, the household, he took control of me. I was already so damaged that, it just,
He stole bits and pieces of you.
he did.
That's such a thing to go through. Just, and I say this from personal experience because it is, you lose, and but when that sexual abuse happens to a child, for me, I was a virgin. That was, it wasn't something, and that completely changed the whole course of how I treated sexual, all of it, just completely. It completely shifts.
It does. And I was so traumatized by it because my abuser it wasn't only about the sex for him, it was really about the torture. It was really about the claiming of dominance and the
Hmm.
way he would, unfortunately beat me and the things that he did to me and satanic things that he would bring into that. So it really, it was a whole big thing. And he was just a very, very damaged young man and brought all that onto me. So as a young girl, I was just lost in that whole piece
How
for
were you
a long
dealing
time.
with that? Because
I,
that is a living hell.
it was a living hell. It truly, truly was a living hell. And in my book, I describe things very raw and very graphically at times because when I wrote my story, I wrote it through the eyes of a child, the child's perspective. So I really dug deep into my memoir and shared the deep details. And it was very difficult to do so. And I had to fight really hard every single day just to survive. I was in fight or flight mode always. I would try to find things to do to self-soothe. I would go out into nature. I would write. I was always a writer, writing poetry, taking my dog with me, sitting in the woods, basically hiding and just trying to be at peace and trying to save my mind for just a little bit before I had to go back into the battle zone. And I could tell you
Hmm.
every time I walked up the steps of my house, my stomach would flip. I would
I
shake.
know that feeling. I
Yes.
know that feeling of fear that,
Fear
yeah,
and
you,
the
yeah,
unknown of what is going to happen to me next because so many bad things happened to me that it was like you just didn't know what else was coming your way. And I always had to be on my guard and watch every little thing. And it was really a really difficult time for me. And I really, went to some very dark, dark places. You and I discussed that earlier about
yes, yeah.
going into that darkness. And at the age of 13 and a half, I wanted to end my own life.
Hmm.
And I, really contemplated it and I had a plan. And by the grace of God, I didn't follow through and I'm here today. And I was able to keep on going, but it was such a hard battle. Teenage years, the anger, just wanting to just break free from it all. And at the
Oh,
same time,
absolutely.
keeping
Yeah.
it silent. I kept it so silent because it was the only way I felt I could survive. I could not say the words out loud. I did not want to say the words out loud. And I decided I was just going to fight really hard to change my life. I dug into school really deep and did really well. And, the overachiever effect, doing all the things that you want to do so you can get out of where you are. So I did fight really hard through all of it, but it was a really rough battle, and I definitely took a lot of hits that were really brutal along the way.
How were you able to get past, that feeling that you want to die to get to the feeling that you want to live? Um,
Yes, that's a great question because I remember really, really clearly, even to this day, that I hit that point where I was like, I'm done. I'm done being abused. I can't do it anymore. I'm told I'm worthless. I was told I was garbage under somebody's shoe. Nobody would ever love me. I was a piece of crap. I mean, those were the words that were coming out. Then the beatings, and then the sexual abuse, and my mind was so clouded and so damaged. I was just done. I says, I'm going to end it. I really thought in my mind that I would end it and then be with my brother. My brother would come and rescue me and take me
yeah.
home and keep me safe where no one ever could touch me ever again. And that was my mindset. And
I know that I had the same mindset actually. My grandmother's, it was my grandmother's who had passed. My great grandmother passed, and she was a huge part of my life up until I was 9, right before I moved to the US. And when she passed, and when I started having, wanting to die, wanting to commit suicide, that was it. I just wanted to go back because I was like, I can finally just be with her and I'll be
yes,
safe and I will be loved and everything will just be fine. And the pain
yes.
was just so unbearable that I
You
was a
think,
cutter and
yes, okay, yep,
and I would cut, and I never had really the full nerve. And one time I did have the full nerve, but then my dorm mother at private school found me and they brought me to the mental hospital, and that's a whole different story. But I can't say that whole experience helped me get past it. It was just, I always wanted to die up until a certain point. By the time I was 25, I did die because I was just reckless and I was a drug addict and there was just so much
wow,
I was going through, and I died of an overdose. And, in my death, I did go to in this dream with my great grandmother, and somehow I came back to life. And to say that I wanted to continue living even after that, that didn't even set in. It
wow,
wasn't something that hit me up until probably my late 20s. And I just realized there has to be something more. And I was just battling, and I was like, I'm fighting for this because somehow I was granted a second chance at life. I could have died like I wanted. That was the plan, but somehow
you're still
something told me that I need, and that purpose sort of festered in, slowly fighting all that darkness. So for
here.
me, it was a really long process. But today I can say, I have a fear of death, and not for what death means to me, but a fear of death because I can't imagine leaving my daughter, my
Right.
family. There's so much in this life I still want to
Right. Well, you did,
taste.
like you said, you did the shift. And first of all, I want to say thank you for sharing that with me and for everyone who's listening, because it is, your powerful truth of what happened. And it's very hard to disclose these things and talk about. And the more we do talk about it, it does help us all because it shows that we're not alone in these deep struggles. Because I felt the same way. I was like again, done. And I had this plan, and I went and I was going to execute this plan. I was going to jump off this waterfall, hit the rocks, be done, and be with my brother. And I thought the thought of him being there, extending his hand and
Hmm.
pulling me to safety was just such an amazing feeling to me in that moment because I felt that was the only way out.
It almost feels like a relief. It's a relief from,
Yes, a
well,
relief
it's a
from the
solution.
pain.
It's a relief of
Yeah,
this unbearable pain that You've
because
silenced for so
right.
long.
And you hit that point where you're like, okay, there's nothing else here for me. I gotta go. But that's not the reality. But in that moment, that is how
Hmm.
I feel. And I have to tell you, I went to put my foot off that ledge to jump, and I distinctly heard a voice say to me, no, stop. This is not the answer. I know on that day it was my brother talking to me and saying,
You felt that, yeah.
I felt it through my whole soul that he was like, no, this isn't the answer. And I didn't, I put my foot back on the ledge. I was really like blown away by the thought of really hearing his voice and him saying those words to me. But it also shifted my gears. Like you said, when did I shift gears? I shifted gears in that moment because I thought,
Hmm.
oh my goodness, what am I really doing? And I went back home and I still had to deal with abuse for a long period of time. But something inside of me changed that day. And from that point forward, I started to fight. I started to make a game plan for myself. How am I going to get out of this mess? How am I going to get out of this horrific abuse? I am not going to allow it to beat me. I am going to beat it. And that was my mindset switch and thinking to myself, you know, what's next for me? And I would look at myself in the mirror and I would talk to myself and I would cry and I would think, oh my God, where did Lisa go? Who is this person in the mirror looking at me? Because this is
Yeah.
not who I am. And that fueled me even more to push forward and to fight harder because I was angry at the girl I was looking at because that's
Hmm.
not who I wanted ever to be. So those things are what pushed me forward. And I did have ideas of, suicide a few times after that, but then I really, really just kept pushing. And I also did as a young teen, I went through the drugs and the alcohol. I remember sitting at the beach by myself crying, looking up at the sky, talking to my brother. And I would be so out of it because I had taken pills and drinking and do
Hmm.
all these things. And then it just came to a point where it just didn't feel right to me. It was like, this isn't the answer either. This isn't the answer. What are you going to do next? And then I decided now it's time to put myself into my studies, my education, tap into, working hard and being out away from the home as much as possible, and just kept going and pushing. And the more I pushed, the more I was succeeding. And when I saw those successes happening, I wanted more, I craved more. And that's what I geared myself on. That was my path, getting me through high school, getting me into college, and moving forward with my life.
That is so inspiring.
Well,
Because, no, but seriously, I mean, my life, it took me a lot longer to even get to that point, for me personally, because I was always running away from something, and my mental health was, um, I suffer from borderline personality disorder. I can say this. I wrote a whole book about it. So,
once you put it
I
out
can
there,
own it.
no turning back.
No turning back now. And so I like to think of it now as obviously as in remission. I still have my moments. CPTSD is still there. Sometimes it comes out. I have my anxiety attacks. I still have those moments. But for me, I couldn't get to that point. Like, I was so drained from academics. I was the one who sent myself to private school in the beginning. I was like, this is how I do it. Like, I'm going to go to private school. I'm going to board at school. I'm going to live at school, get
Right.
away from the house. I get away from my parents' drama. Um, and I feel this independence. But I put so much pressure on that by the time I got to college, I crashed. My mind just said, I can't, we're done.
You
We did it.
burnt out. You burnt out, and
Burnout.
that
Complete.
burnout came from your trauma.
Complete. It was like I can't. And for college, it was just drugs and alcohol. And that first
Mhm.
prescription to benzos was like, oh my God, that
Right.
just opened a whole new thing, and that
So
made it
you're
easier.
burying yourself, and like we all know this is that many times when people have been abused, myself included, you want to numb that pain, you want it to
Hmm.
go away, and you try to find every which way possible to do it. And unfortunately, the only way to get past it is by facing it. And
Oh yeah,
I call it taming the beast. That's the name I gave it, taming the beast, because
taming the beast.
taming the beast
Yeah.
because that is a beast. It's a huge beast
Hmm.
to deal with all of these things that you've been through, that I've been through. And when we face it and work through it, that's the only way that we could truly heal and move forward. And we all have our own journey to get there. Like you said it took you longer. It took, and it took me a long time too, but in a different way, because I was
Yep.
silent, so silent. I never shared what really happened to me. I got married and I had children, and now I'm dealing with my mom, with, still with her abuse as
Hmm.
a grown married woman. I'm still dealing with her abuse from, because she was so, profusely ill. And I hit a point where I hit rock bottom. It all came back. Everything that I squashed, everything that I held so tight was all
Yep.
up in my face. I had the nightmares, the flashbacks,
Hmm.
living in two worlds at once. And I had this really, really bad attack one day that really put me to my knees. And I said, oh my goodness, I have to do something. This is it. I have three children that need me. I have a husband, a whole life. I'm not going to lose it all. What am I going to do? And I had to make that choice, go to therapy, disclose the abuse, and go from there. But I have to tell you, as you know, the hardest thing in the world is to say those words out loud, to hear your voice say what happened to you. It really,
Oh,
it
absolutely. The
broke,
first time when it doesn't,
it broke me. Yes.
it's so hard because I know it's like for me, I'm mute. There's this huge voice inside my head being like, okay, this is just say it. Just
Right.
say it aloud. You can do it. And I'm just like,
No,
mm-mm,
no.
I can't go. It just,
Yeah, it wouldn't come out. And I have to tell you, once it did come out, the floodgates opened, and I heard the words, those dirty words coming out of my mouth. And I was just so devastated that this was my life. This is truly what happened to me. This is the truth. Hence my book, The Unspoken Truth, because
mm-hmm.
I held that unspoken truth for years upon years. Now the Pandora box is open. Now it's out there, and I'm sharing it, and I'm talking with my therapist, and I just couldn't stop. It was like, it just kept coming and coming and coming. And then I had to make, the decision to share this now with my husband. So my husband was, 10 years in, three children, and I had to share the truth with him, and he didn't know. He knew about my mom, he knew the illness, he saw my mother, he knew my
Yep.
mother, but he didn't know about the other piece, the sexual abuse piece, the torturistic abuse,
Yeah.
all those things. He didn't know. And then I told him. I had to tell him. And it was one of the hardest things I think I've ever had to do in my life, was to share it with him, because I knew it would hurt him. It would break his heart. And he
No,
looked at
yeah.
me and he said, who are you? He's like, do I even know you? Like, he was so floored by this. But our love is really what kept us together, because we worked really, really hard to push through all those things. And
Mm-hmm.
he supported me on my healing journey, and he's always been my number one supporter. I'm very lucky and very grateful that we have endured
To
so
it's amazing to have that support, and also to have that
much.
support to find yourself and have that creativity. I've been blessed with it myself, so with a partner that kind of supports that,
Yes,
my outlets, my creativity, whatever I want to share, I share.
right.
It's nice to
It
not
is
think that there's someone that I also have to please finally,
right,
because all my life I feel like every time my first husband, everything, it was just everything about pleasing them, putting them on the pedestal, being silent about whatever I'm feeling, and just losing completely all bits and pieces, and just doing whatever
right.
they wanted of me.
You're just, yes, you're being dragged along in a sense, and that's how it
Yeah.
feels, that you're just trudging along and you're just pleasing, 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 and then you do get completely lost in all that. And I felt completely lost, because I was, again, like living in two worlds at once. I'm trying to be the good wife, I'm trying to be the
Hmm.
good mother, I'm trying to be the good daughter. I had a career and I'm trying to work and be good at that, pulled in so many directions, pulled so thin that, we all do have those breaking points. And I did, when I hit that breaking point, it was rough, and it was so horrible. Healing is messy. There's no way
Oh,
around
it's so
it.
messy.
Healing
Yeah.
is so messy. And when I say to people, you got to break that silence, and you can get onto this healing journey. I don't say that lightly. It's not like, okay, now that you said it all, it's all better. No, that's when the real work begins. That's
Oh,
when
yeah.
even harder, because now you have to face it piece by piece by piece. And that's a key factor in healing, is when you're going through that process, you have to take it in very small doses, little bits at
Hmm.
a time, because if you don't, you're going to get swallowed up in that as well. And I tried
It,
to do
it,
it
it
that
sucks you in. It really
way.
does. It does a deep dive. Because when I was writing my book and when I felt like I would get so sucked in, I would have to suck myself out because I was physically in those moments. Like I would feel the cold, the fear. I would
Yep.
be sitting there. I'm like, this is like, I'm feeling it as I'm typing it. And then I'd realize, no, hold on. Like, can I just pull myself? I need to breathe. Like I
Yeah,
need to
yes,
center.
exactly. And for myself as well, writing my memoir, tapping into those old memories from childhood, really feeling and living in that moment of abuse, so very difficult. And I had to stop many times because I was getting the flashbacks, I was getting the nightmares, they were seeping back in, because your brain is on overload. When your brain has been damaged, it takes
Hmm.
years and years to undo that damage. So when you are going through your healing, or you're going through writing and putting all this stuff, out there, it does take a toll, and you have to really do a lot of self-care along the way to be able to protect yourself and to be good, kind to yourself, because these things are dark and heavy and obviously so damaging.
Yes, and self-love, it's so important.
Self-love is very important.
For a long time, I didn't even feel it. I didn't see it.
Right.
I really didn't like myself. I was at one point in my life, I was too scared to look at myself in the mirror because I was scared of what I was going to see. I
Yes,
couldn't.
I get
I
that.
couldn't
And
even talk to myself in the mirror. Like right now, I'm talking, I see a
right,
camera. I'm like, oh, I see myself. Hi,
right.
okay.
You're like, I'm
Not
good.
too bad, shabby.
Right,
Okay,
right,
this
not
is
dead.
fun.
Yes.
But I went through this phase where I couldn't even talk at a camera or into a mirror and see myself speaking because I was so scared at what
Right.
I was going to see. And I hated it. And I knew it was just
Yes.
so
Yes.
much hate.
Yes, and that's then, and that's your internal shame and blame that we put on ourselves,
Hmm.
that is not ours to carry. It's not our burden. It was what was bestowed upon us. But we, as survivors, we do carry that. And it takes a very long period of time to truly unload it, to truly put it in its place, put it on a shelf, and put it to rest. And that is hard to do. And even, at my stage of healing, and I have gone through many stages of healing, I still have those moments where something will ping me, and I will get that trigger, and it brings
Hmm.
me right back to those moments in time that were so damaging. And I have to remind myself, it's okay, Lisa. You are all right now. That's the past. But I'll always sit with it for a little bit. And I feel that's important too, to sit with it a little bit, acknowledge it, and then
Yeah.
put it back in its place, because when you do that, you are taking back the control once again. It may
Yeah.
have tapped into you for a little bit, and you have to acknowledge it, but then put it back in its place, because you're taking back the control. You are in the lead. You are in the lead of
Hmm.
your life. And that is so important for all survivors to remember. You have the ability to do so. You can put it in its place and keep on moving forward. All practice skills, all things that do take time. But
Oh, yeah.
those are things we do need to remember along the way.
Absolutely. And just helpful, even just talking to yourself and changing that voice from negative to positive is such an important shift. And
It is.
it's for me, it was really vital in that one. Once, especially if anyone that's listening that does have borderline personality disorder, as it does stem from trauma, if you're listening, you experience it. I know it's really hard to do that switch, but little bits. I did it bit by bit, the 1 hour by other. It's very hard. It's a play because there's another voice that will always continuously say, no, no, no. Remember this. You failed so much that, you should be ashamed of yourself rather than saying, no, I survived so much. I
Right.
should be
You're
proud
you're
of
fighting
myself.
yourself. In a sense, you're fighting yourself.
Mhm.
fighting those pieces.
Absolutely.
And
Yep.
it's hard to always be strong, and of course the self-talk is very important. I always say be your own cheerleader, because that is another way that we can get through things, and talking to yourself and saying, okay, I'm feeling this way, but now I'm going to switch these gears and just start giving yourself some positivity. And I always think this as well, is when you're feeling that way, change up your scenery. If you can get outside, take a
Yes.
walk, change
Yep.
your scenery, because sometimes that just really helps the mind switch gears. It helps, you get back to your baseline, to ground
And get
yourself
out of that loop,
and
because
get
I
out.
feel like there's a loop that happens, right? So with any traumatic moment or any anxiety moment, I feel like my mind just goes onto this spiraling loop,
Right.
and I can't get out of it until maybe I physically do something
Do
else or
something
find
different.
movement,
Yeah.
something grounding, something even
It's all,
just
your sensories. It's all your, and like say when grounding, like your sensories, like I always say, get out there and smell and look and see, tap into what your surroundings are, because
mhm.
that will also help you get back to your baseline.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
But so it's hard. It's hard to do it, especially when you're in a funk and you're in a dark place, and you're like really trying hard. And that's when supports should come in. You should
Yes.
tap into your toolbox, your coping skills, your supports. I know those things are sometimes they sound cliche, but those really are the things that do help us in those times that we have.
They're so vital,
They are fine.
but I also fear that people who are going through these really dark times, these really hard times, the hardest thing to do is just to even say help,
Yes.
because been so isolated in trauma and silenced themselves and done so
Right.
much that saying help me is as hard as acknowledging the
Exactly.
trauma.
Yes, and it's true. And, like I said, I lived in silence for years, and after breaking the silence, and that's why I called myself the voice for the voiceless, because I feel like by sharing my story, by talking about these things that
Hmm.
happened to me, I'm giving a voice to the people who are out there who have not hit that level yet, to who are still sitting in silence, like you said, isolated in their abuse trauma. I always hope that by sharing my story, I'm giving them a voice, as well as giving myself that voice. And I'm hoping to pull people into the light. And that's always been my goal. That was my goal right from the beginning when I decided to write my story. I knew that I had a purpose, that it needed to come out in such a way that I'm going to let people know that they are not alone in their struggles. And that has been my goal from day one. And I'm really proud to say that I've spoken to so many people in so many different situations. And when they say to me that by me sharing it gave them the strength to share,
Hmm.
then it's like that's when I say to myself, "You're there, Lisa. You're doing exactly what you were always meant to do, taking all this pain and bringing it to purpose, and by doing so, helping others get to a place where they can find their own healing journey." And so important. It's such important work to do. I'm really grateful to be able to do it. I'm so proud of getting to this point to do it, and I'm proud of you.
It's a
Like,
huge
it
accomplishment.
is. Look at you, Diana. Look what you're doing. You've been through so much, and here you are right now. We are having this conversation. It's such a beautiful thing to think that, we've both been through these awful, awful things that nobody should ever, ever have to go through. But look
Right.
at us. We're
We're
smiling.
sitting here, we're having the conversation, and hopefully we're inspiring others. And I know we're inspiring others because I've been that person that would silently search out and read the books and try to find the audio and try to find the interviews where people are honestly sharing their experience, because it is so lonely in the darkness and thinking that hope is some sort of psychotic thing,
Yes,
and
it's like
having
it's hope.
faith and believing that you can have happy thought is part of psychosis, you
Yes,
know. So
is hope
I
real?
yeah.
Like, so in those dark times, like, I used to think that, and I have
I
all this
did too.
hope, and I'm like, is this real? Is this just, are things really going to change, or am I going to be stuck in this dark hole forever? But there was always that inner drive that kept saying, keep going, keep going, keep going, and tapping into that. But yes, when you're in those moments, it's really hard to grasp onto the hope and faith piece when all you see is darkness.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think that is why it's so important. That is why I wanted this podcast and really go in that direction and give voices to the voiceless, because I feel that. I feel everything you've said. I identify with everything you said. And I remember when we even first connected, and we've only connected on social media. We
I
haven't
know,
even met in person. So
I
this is
know.
all just natural, and people are experiencing this natural connection between us, which I
Right.
think is also mind-blowing and amazing.
Yes, yes. And it's
But
the best way to share authentically and just being real. And I really do believe that when we share in such a way, that's when people do connect. People do tap into it. They stop and they go, wait a minute. This is
yep,
this is real talk. This is real life experience. We are the everyday people. We are not some famed superstar that puts a story out there. Not that their story is any less,
no,
everyone has
a
story, but
but
the point
this
I'm
is,
making is that their story can be put out there and blasted everywhere, and
mhm,
everyone's like, "Oh my goodness, they were abused. This happened." And but we're the everyday people that it's happened to, and there's so
yeah.
many of us out there doing the same thing, and this validates all that we've been through.
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely. So we have about 10 minutes left. I
okay,
love chatting with you. I hope you join us again.
I will. I
Um,
definitely will.
but I want to give those 10 minutes just so you have a quick, just to share, promote yourself a little bit so our audience can know where to get your books. If there's links, if you can share them aloud. I'll make a post later sharing everything so our viewers have it. And obviously the podcast will be also shared on wildthepodcast.com, and we're on YouTube. So if you visit the website, you'll be on with, along with everybody else, but the episode will also be on YouTube and everywhere else. So there you go. Quick
Okay.
promo for Lisa.
Okay. I love that, but thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate the
I love being your cheerleader.
I know
It's
I'm loving it. Be
amazing.
my cheerleader because I'll be yours. I promise. I will
I love it.
yes, and just thinking about like just tap into a few moments of just the book of Joann, which is my other book it's my mom's story. So quickly, it's a complete novel. It's my mother's story from birth to death, everything in between, and our complex relationship as mother and daughter. My mom struggled with mental illness, and this is her life journey. And she asked me to share her story. She wanted her voice to be heard. She's always was misunderstood. She wanted her voice to be heard. She wanted people to understand the reality of what mental illness does, not only to the person but to the family. And I promised her that I would write her story and share it with the world. And I have successfully done that. The Book of Joann is definitely another powerful story, just like the Unspoken Truth. Two different
Hmm.
versions, they connect together, and it's just all of what we have been through. And I share it for awareness, I share it for purpose, I share it for education. These are, again, real life stories that are so important for people to hear.
Did you
And
feel like you found closure
I did
writing your mother's story and coming kind of full circle as mother and daughter?
I did find closure, and I found other parts of my mother. I learned about my mom in so many different ways. Like I wrote her story and I was in her shoes. And that's
Hmm.
a powerful place to be. And it also gave me another perspective. It gave me the perspective through her lenses. And that helped me to heal. And I actually did that kind of healing work with my about my dad, my mom, and even my sexual abuser. I put myself in their shoes and walked in their footsteps to understand why it all fell apart, why it all fell onto me. And by
Hmm.
doing that work, I did find closure. I found forgiveness with my mom. I found forgiveness with my dad. I can't say that I found forgiveness with my sexual abuser. I'll be very, very honest with you. But what I did find was compassion for his young child self because he was severely abused as a young man. And it unfolded onto me, unfortunately. But I did find clarity in so many ways by writing my mother's story, by doing that type of healing work, and definitely gave me such closure and more love and appreciation for my family, my parents.
Yeah.
I understand why it fell apart, and and not that it was right that it did fall onto me as a young child, but I do get it, and that did help me in so many ways.
Yeah. I think sometimes just getting it or hearing it, I know kind of it really does help. There's still so much I haven't gotten back from my parents, but the little snippets of stories help.
They do help. They do help, and in the end of my mom's life, her and I did share a lot of things. And she did say to me, she was very sorry for how things, were for us and how life was for us. She really understood and knew how difficult it was for me. She could never say those words, but in the end, she did. We did find a lot of closure during that time period. And my dad as well. We did discuss things that happened, and we just came to a common ground of understanding, and
Hmm.
all those things do help. And once we do that self work, we just keep going with it. And yes, and so many amazing things have come from writing both of these books. I've done so many workshops and keynote speaking engagements, and just talking on podcasts like this, which I
Yeah.
absolutely love, because this is the normal, natural conversations, and that's so important to put out there. But I've received so many gifts by doing this work and becoming a public speaker. That was never in my wheelhouse.
Right. That was I didn't even
Wasn't in
know.
my wheelhouse,
I personally have horrible stage fright. I know right now someone listening to me would not believe me, but I used to have horrible stage fright.
No, you
A part
seem
of me
very
dreamt of, being an actress or whatever and being on stage, but that was a fantasy. And then there's the other part that it was just I
well.
couldn't
It's
get
unnerving.
the words out.
Yeah, it's unnerving when you first do it. Like my first time, I did an author talk right after my book came out, and I, went out there and I spoke in front of like 65, 70 people, and it was the first time I've ever done public speaking, and
Hmm.
I was shaking in my shoes, but
Shaking, yeah. The
yeah, I went
shakes came.
up there and I just said, "Okay, Lisa, it's go time." And once I hit the ground running, I just did it, and I felt amazing. And it just fueled my fire to want to do it more, and to have people come up to me afterwards and tell me how my story inspired them. It gave them the courage to speak up and tell their stories. That's the beauty. That's the beauty
Yeah.
of all of this, is to get other people to heal, to get them to share, and hopefully get the support that they need to overcome these things. And
And it's so important now, especially to have these dialogues because we have these tools
we
for
do,
healing. We
we
have
do.
so much. There's so much more knowledge out there. There's so much, I
There
want
is,
to say, even acceptance, humanity. There's more acceptance nowadays. And it's
there is.
so important. I will fight until the end to have these conversations because this is what can help shift dialogue and understanding when survivors come and really just share their
Right.
stories and open it up to everybody, right?
Yeah, they
So,
need safe spaces. And I was just gonna to add into that, like with the mental health piece, like my mom back in the 70s and 80s, mental health was really that small scope. It wasn't talked about. It was frowned upon.
mhm.
You didn't have the support that you truly needed, and that's what happened with my mom. She didn't get the proper help, that we both fell through the cracks. And that was the countless stories thinking around the world. This is how it really is happening. If you're not talking about it, you're not giving the proper support, people
Oh,
just fall to the
absolutely.
sidelines. And now, as I'm on here right now, I'll say to anybody who is struggling in silence, please reach out for help and support. There is always a way. If the first person you speak to, it doesn't work out, keep on going. Do not stop until you find someone somewhere that is going to support you in the way that you need it, because you're worthy, and you're worth every little bit of the time you put into yourself.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. And if anybody ever wants to find me, write to me. Come to my website, lisazarcone.net. I have a contact page. I truly answer everybody who writes to me. I really believe that if someone is going to step forward and want to speak to me, I am definitely going to speak to them. And I will answer questions and chat and whatever. So if somebody wants to reach out to me, definitely go to my website. My book links are there. You can also go to Amazon and Barnes and Noble and find me there as well. So I'm definitely available and out there. I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. I'm even on TikTok, believe it or not.
Yay! I'm dabbling with TikTok. I have no idea where it's going. I don't know what I'm doing. I
I'm
posted
on my
some of my
TikTok.
book things.
Yes,
Tried some makeup videos. I don't know how that went, but
I
hey,
do,
I'm
I do
playing.
it
I'm doing it, trying
You're
it.
doing it. And hey, do it. If it feels good, do it. I do it just I give other people hope and inspiration. That's really what I do. And I share, little short videos and chatting, or I'll just do a picture and just put a quote with it. Just
Hmm.
something simple. Just letting people know to tap into positivity, to get help and support when you need it. Just on motivational things. I'll be like, come on, it's midweek crunch. Let's do this. We got this.
Yeah.
Just all those
And
things.
I love those type of posts. Sometimes I really need them. Sometimes it's just I love sharing them in my communities because it's just it's nice. It's nice to read that
Yes.
instead of being in your head and being like, oh no, it's not
Right.
working. I'm failing. This is not work. That's inspiraling
I
into
do the same thing.
interesting.
I do. I share things. I share other people's things all the time. And I do it. I think it's important for all of us to, tap into those things a little bit because life is hard. Life does get heavy. We all have our moments. And, just even beyond the scope of being an abuse survivor or struggling with mental health, life in general is hard. And social
Yes.
media and the news and everything that's thrown at us 24/7, our
Oh yeah.
are constantly on overload. So when you can read
Mhm.
something positive or inspiring, it's like a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, it is. It helped me a lot. It got me through some of the hurdles, some of my past fears, failures, helped me kind of motivate myself,
Right,
get
right.
into my book writing, release it and for anyone, I remember I will leave it with this note. And I used to be that person where I was in therapy and never mind that I used to love to write, but for a while I stopped. And I would be in therapy and my therapist is like, just write. And I
Mhm.
couldn't pick up a pen and paper and write. And I was like, there's no point because it's all in my head anyway. Like I have this monologue, I hear it,
Yeah.
it's nonstop. I'm not going to sit down and write it now, right? But for anyone that's listening, do write. Take
Mhm.
that pen and piece of paper because it will get you out of that loop because your mind is on that loop because it wants to release. And once you let it write whatever it wants to write, let it say whatever it wants to say. Don't hold back. Just pen and paper. You don't have to publish your book. You don't
Right.
have to be an author. You don't even have to be a writer, but do release that pain, whatever it is you're
Yeah.
holding on to.
I even say to add to that is like if you feel like you can't write a bunch of things, write one word.
Oh,
It
absolutely.
can
Yeah.
be any type of word you want because you're writing for you. Write one word, write it over and over again, then add to it. And then as you
Hmm.
get more comfortable, just keep going with it. And you're right. You don't have to be a writer to write in your journal. You don't have to ever publish or share these thoughts and feelings that you're having. That's for you. And I'll even go a step further again and say, read those things back to yourself
Oh,
out
yeah.
loud.
Yeah.
Out loud, hear your voice, say it, even if it's a swear word. I've said, sometimes you're in that mode and you're just like,
Yeah.
write it down, read it back to
Absolutely.
yourself. It releases that anxiety, it releases the pain, it releases the stress. Very important, like you said, it breaks you out of the circle.
Yeah. Just a good release. And on that note, we do have to say goodnight. Lisa, thank you so much for being here on Wild the podcast. I really appreciate it. I hope you come back. I really love this conversation. I love to have future ones with you. Thank
Definitely.
you for making my evening. I know you
Oh,
made
thank
other
you.
people's evenings.
Oh, you made my evening as well. And I definitely would love to come back and do this again. Thank you for having me tonight. This was awesome.
Thank you so much. And for anyone that was tuning in, thank you. We appreciate you. Have a great night. Please, please, please fill yourselves up with love. So much love that it spills over on to others. And take care of each other. And thank you for listening. This was Wild the Podcast. Have a great night.